Fired his embattled Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and nominated Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma to replace her. The shakeup came just days after Noem faced a bipartisan grilling on Capitol Hill over her leadership of the department that oversees the president's immigration crackdown. Noem's tenure at DHS has been marked by a series of controversies, most notably the killing of protesters Nicole Good and Alex Pretty by federal agents in Minneapolis. We are back with Dan Henninger, Kate Odell, and Kyle Peterson. So, Kate, why do you think the president felt he had to fire Kristi Noem? He's been very reluctant in his second term to do that to anyone.
Well, Paul, I think this has been coming for a long time. I think frustration with her had been building for many months now, to include events in Minneapolis where, Tom Homan had to be sent in to clean it up. And I think Trump doesn't like to fire anyone in the heat of press attention, but I think this was pretty much inevitable after that. So it wasn't simply her performance at the hearing or simply the ad that she made that the president said he had no knowledge of. This was a long simmering frustration. And Kristi Noem was always an odd pick for what was going to be a really a top priority of the president's and politically controversial set of priorities. And so I think it makes sense at this point to replace her.
All right. So, Kyle, what role do you think the Minneapolis shootings played in this? Is that Kate suggests that was really it was the beginning of the end for Noem after that? Do you believe that?
Yeah, I think it played a big role. I think President Trump doesn't want to look like he's buckling under criticism, so maybe he waited for a good period after that to make this change. I do also think that maybe it was a straw that broke the camel's back situation, because there's all sorts of other, personal controversies involving Noem's tenure, the planes that the department was buying and her travel around them, the allegations that a relationship with her top aide, Corey Lewandowski, was more than professional, that she has denied. But I agree with Kate. At some point, maybe it just makes sense to slot in somebody who can make a change here. And to my mind, one of the big questions is whether it's going to be more than personnel, but it's also going to be a shift by President Trump on immigration policy.
Well, and along those lines, Dan, Markwayne Mullin will probably be confirmed in the Senate. He's a senator, and there's no particular reason not to vote for him. But whose policies are going to follow here is the question. Tom Homan was sent in, the White House border czar, immigration czar, after Minneapolis to say, look, we're going to have targeted enforcement here, which means we're going to look at criminals. We're going to look at people who already have a deportation order. We're not going to be grabbing people inside their homes unless there's real reason to do so.
Yeah, and we may assume that the Homan's strategy is currently the status quo on this, and as opposed to the mass deportations and the situation you described. I think what happened in Minneapolis was probably the single most catastrophic event of Trump's first year. It was very destructive to his presidency. People were upset by it. The first killing was bad enough, but then to extend this activity so that you ended up with another person being killed was a disaster. Tom Homan said a year ago that the goal would be to capture gang members because the police know who the members of these gangs are. And they're terrible gangs from Venezuela, Nicaragua, Mexico, Ecuador, and drive them out of the city. A lot of the people who came up here from places like Ecuador were fleeing the terror and crime created by those gangs. So if I think they concentrate on that, then the public will be basically supportive of going after these so-called illegal aliens, as Trump describes them, so long as they're the worst of the worst, rather than trying to deport people working for Home Depot.
Okay, talk about the fight over funding the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security. The Democrats still refuse to provide the votes to do that, so it's shut down. There was money separate from last year's budget bill for the ICE agents and border, but not for other things that DHS does, like national security. Are Democrats taking a risk here if there is an event, a terrorist event in the U.S.?
They're absolutely taking a risk, and this change of leadership at the department is a good opening, I think, for Democrats to change their strategy. The irony, as you note, is that Republicans funded ICE in last year's budget bill extensively, but other elements of DHS are not as well funded. And so we're talking about the United States Coast Guard, TSA, FEMA, these other apparatuses. And we know, we know that, for instance, that Iran uses terrorism, uses cyber attacks. And so it's hard for me to believe here that Democrats really want to leave the United States vulnerable at this moment and not fund the department.
Okay, thanks, Kate. Still ahead, James.